Hello, colleagues. This is Kush Desai with Elevated Clinical Practice Consulting. I have seen a number of people ask about rate increases from insurance panels. I certainly understand that insurance panels pay at different rates for different types of providers. Individual practices versus group practices have different leveraging powers when it comes to rate negotiation. And your geographic region also impacts how much you get reimbursed. For example, if you are licensed with Aetna in New York, you might get reimbursed higher than Aetna in Colorado. With all of that said, I wanted to share a couple quick tips about negotiating increased rates with insurance panels. The first option would be when you initially get the rates, when you're initially credentialing with insurance panels. If you're unhappy with the rates, you can ask about getting an increase in that rate from the get-go. That may be a harder negotiation to achieve higher reimbursement, but certainly worth the shot. After you are credentialed, typically each insurance panel in each region dictates when a provider can ask for an increase. Some insurances, like Optum, will say you have to be paneled for at least 2 years, and the region has to be open for us to consider giving you a raise. Well, others are a little bit more willing to consider giving a raise at a year, such as Cigna Evernorth. The process of requesting a rate increase would be first calling the provider relations contact at that insurance that you're hoping to get a rate increase from, asking them if, based on your organization tax ID and NPI, if your organization is eligible for a raise. And then they'll kind of go through the criteria of what they generally look at when considering rate increase requests. And then they'll also look at the region and areas where you're credentialed to see if that region is open to giving you a raise. So, for example, if the Optum United Healthcare, you qualify for a raise, but the West region is not accepting any raise increase requests, you might not be able to get a rate increase. So start by calling the provider relations and asking if you qualify for a rate increase. If you do qualify, ask them what they require from you to request that rate increase. Typically, insurance panels will require you to submit a written letter essentially justifying why you deserve that rate increase, and then they will review that request and then typically get back to you. Sometimes that review period can take 3-4 months. Other times they'll get back to you within 1 to 2 months. It really just depends on the insurance company. Once you contact them, you determine you're eligible for a rate increase or to ask for a rate increase. The next step is going to be writing that letter. In the letter, there's a couple things you want to talk about. And really what it comes down to is you want to be able to show what makes you special. For example, do you provide services outside of regular business hours, like evening sessions or weekend sessions? Are you bilingual? Do you have any specialties like trauma, ADHD, autism, those type of things? Eating disorders is another example. That's definitely a specialized treatment. What experience and trainings have you received within those areas? And what evidence-based practices and modalities do you use? So like, do you use CBT, DBT, EMDR, mindfulness-based stress reduction certifications you've received in the area, like getting certified with the Beck Institute for CBT treatment, for example, or completing EMDR certification. Those would be great justifications to get a rate increase. How are you tracking progress of your clients? Is something you also want to include. So that's going to be like, I use screening tools like the PHQ-9, G87, ASRS, that type of thing. Are there any populations you work with that are higher risk populations like LGBT youth, veterans, children and teens? And with that, I'll typically include like a couple sentences of the community need for service for that population. So I'll give an example of a recent letter I wrote for a provider that works with LGBT youth. I looked at Arizona Trevor Project data for access to healthcare, and I included that in the letter to the insurance company to justify that this is a population that needs that increased support. Once you have written the letter, the insurance panel, when you call them, will advise you how to send it. I typically recommend sending it in that way, but then also if there are any additional ways to send it, like if they say we prefer to get letters by email, certainly email it, but then also mail it, fax it, send it to other contacts in the kind of contract and credentialing side of that insurance panel that you may know. The more people you get it to, the more likely it is to be acted upon. And then once you submit the letter, just be diligent in following up. If you give them a call every month, at most, you could even do every 2 weeks to that provider relations line, ensure they got the letter, check on the status, check on the status, check on the status. When they see that you're diligent, it can kind of help with the escalation process and help them review it a little bit quicker. Those are the basic steps and requirements for asking about rate increases, what to include in the letter, and how to submit the letter and follow up with the panels. I hope this is helpful. Follow for more.